Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Quiet Part Out Loud. I'm Alex.
And I'm Nuvyn.
And we are here today with Jenna Kaye, CEO of Odyssey Trust and founder of Access Connect.
Yes. Excited to connect with you today. And thank you for joining us. We always start the podcast with the same question to all of our guests, which is very insightful because by the end, we could probably do an interesting compilation. And that is, if someone were to make a movie about your career, what would the title be? And what type of movie would it be? And what would surprise people the most?
Great question. I feel like this must stump everyone. So
I
can't be the only one.
People are always like, oh gosh. And then there's always a mix of like Eat, Pray, Love and like a horror movie or something. And somewhere in the middle is probably a balance.
Oh my goodness. Okay, mine would obviously be some type of sports reference. So,
okay, excellent.
I'm thinking about but what first came to mind was Space Jam. It's obviously not Space Jam. It would probably be like Hustle. I think although I think there is a movie called Hustler and it is about a stripper or something. So it's not that Hustler.
Not that kind of hustle.
It would be about like hustle and sports. So that would probably be the title that would move from my basketball career into my work career.
Yeah.
And then you said something that would surprise you. And I think this would be a good scene in the movie, and this is a good story. It ties into female empowerment. And I actually asked another CEO, Megan Roots, this question last week, and she had a really interesting answer. But one of the surprising scenes would be I'm in the movie and we're talking about whether or not I should be the CEO of my company. And there's a lot of, from my side, hesitation about it. There's lots of women were uncomfortable taking that big leap into the top job, trying to talk myself down from taking it. My husband's there. He's my biggest cheerleader. He's like, no, it's you. It's got to be you. You have the background. Everyone's believing in you. And it would just be a really great moment for, I think, other women to see this conversation happening in real time. And then the self-doubt that we all have play out, and you really you almost are comforted by all the reasons why you shouldn't be the one to do it. And then I was very lucky that my husband Scott was there, and he was a CEO, and he's like, no, of course it's you. And then when someone's championing you so vigorously, it's easy to be like, okay, well, if you believe it, maybe other people will believe that too. So I think it would be a high point in the movie for anyone watching when I took the jump. And there's a good story about this too, and I'll tell Scott's story because it's just a great one. Before he became CEO, I was like, well, how did you know you were ready to lead a company? And he was like, this is a sad story about Scott. He was like, I was driving to work and the song by Leanne Womack, who we all know, I Hope You Dance, came on.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And he was like, I was listening to it and he was like, you know what? I hope you dance. Be the person, get out there. Don't miss your shot. And
another
so I always
reference. Don't miss your shot.
Yeah, I always hear that in the back of my mind, and I hope that I have 4 daughters. I hope they take that chance and realize what's the worst that can happen? Take the top job, take the leap of faith, believe in yourself. Other people believe in you more than you think. And I think I Hope You Dance is just a great song and a great piece of inspiration for other women who are thinking about whether they should be the CEOs of companies.
It surprises me to learn that you had that doubt, that you were wondering whether you should put your name forward.
Again, I think it's something that all women have that a lot of men don't have. And there's a great study that people reference over and over again, which is men, if they see a job description and they meet 20% of it, they're like, this is me. And a woman sees it and she meets 80% and she's like, no, I'm missing something. So it's just different how it's different. And it's just interesting how gender wise we approach thinking about our skill sets and how we can show up. But I guess if you're looking at me now and saying, hey, I can't believe you ever had that self-doubt. I think that self-doubt still shows up in women, no matter how successful you are and how you try and fight it. It's just a piece of us is all quite inherently risk adverse. And so when it was up to me to become CEO, or I had a male counterpart who, I thought was older than me and had more experience than me, it was easy. It's easy, I think, sometimes as women to say no and to pass the opportunity. But if history has told us something, it's like we really need to be in the top seats. We can't just be COO. We can't just be head of people. We can't just be the CFO. Like when that chance comes to take the top seat, take it. And one of the things I say to my team now and to lots of women that I interact with, and like, imagine yourself as the CEO. Like just spend one morning in your current role and say, like, what would I do differently? Like, what would this company look like? It doesn't matter if you're a manager and you work at TC. Like, imagine what what I would look like as a CEO. And it just, I think, changes people's perception to start envisioning women in those top roles. And we have a lot of work to do in Canada in getting women into CEO positions. So I think it's something we should really be encouraging. And it's something I know Access is really passionate about, giving women that opportunity. So
that's right. Yeah, breaking down those barriers, but also ensuring that we are projecting ourselves into the roles that we want to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us more about basketball? Because this is something I did not know and did not prepare for, but I think it validates another conversation that we've had about women in sport. It's kind of a thread through our convos. So
Yes.
I'd love to hear about that.
So I played basketball growing up. I played basketball in college. I was an All-Canadian. You may not gather this by how short I am. It's a really scrappy point guard, really good rebounder. But my career was obviously over after university because I'm not that tall. But basketball was a big part of my life. I think I talk about basketball a lot in how it weaves into being a CEO, because it teaches you some things that I think no academic background could bring you. And so growing up, I had to learn how to have a great work ethic because, again, I'm short and athletic ability didn't come to me naturally. So I had to work twice as hard as people to be good. And then that's a skill that as an entrepreneur, you need in spades. So I had that. And then it also teaches you a lot about being a leader and building a team. And so when you play college basketball, you don't get to pick all the people you'd want to on your team, but you need to make the best with what you have. And so I spent a lot of time learning how to, deal with and get the most out of different people's skill sets. And then also teach you a lot about being resilient. And so in basketball, you can be down 5 points with 20 seconds left, and you still got to find a way to win the game. And in work, you can wake up with a number of issues flooding your inbox, and you can't melt down when that happens. You have to step back, assess the situation, be the calm voice in the storm, make a list. And I think, again, you bring in a lot of skills that you've developed through sport to help get you to where you need to go. So I'm sure other females in leadership have sport background. I think it's important for all of our girls. I'm going to talk a lot about the fact that I have 4 daughters, but I want them all to be in a sport. They don't need to play college. They don't need to go to the Olympics, but they need to learn how to work with other people. They need to have something that they're committed to, and they need to learn how to work hard.
The data around women in sport and leadership is incredible. That like 94% of women in the C-suite participated in some form of sport in their teenage years. Yeah. So that is often the time when girls are quitting sport or not, following through for a variety of reasons. Boys and Sephora and Lululemon could be some of them. But, they're choosing other activities. And just that importance of having that athletic experience in your teenage years and the correlation with that in leadership is uncanny.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like a Peloton female that says it's like we have to learn how to do hard things. And in those teenage years, I think as a parent, it's really incumbent on us to tell our kids early, like, life is hard. You're going to fail. And part of being a great person and future leader will be to deal with your failures and get back up and get back on the horse and keep going. And so I think it is going to be hard when they are teenagers to not have them step away, but to fight for what will eventually turn them into great people later on.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I never did team sports. I always only did like individual sport. And I noticed my boys, like I've got 3 kids, my boys are super into team sports, and Ellie has chosen like that individualized sporting activities. So I wonder what that says about leadership or decisiveness. I mean, you have 4 girls. So what do you aspire for their athletic journeys?
Yeah, well, if I had it my way, which is to say that as a parent, I have nothing my way already with my 8-year-old.
Very determined, I'm sure.
Yeah, very determined, very convicted what she wants. Luckily, she's really into soccer right now and she really loves it. So that's exciting to watch. But I don't have any grand ambitions. It's not, I'm not going to be, I think about some of the parents in Calgary, they're like, you need to make the NHL. This is all that matters. So I don't need that for them. But like I said, I want them to be exposed to sport, mostly to learn how to work with their friends and to have something that they're committed to. Just going and practicing every day and working hard are things that you're going to need no matter what your career path is. So we'll give them the opportunities to enter, and then from there, it's kind of out of our hands. I'd love to push them down the basketball path, but I'll probably save them some pain by moving her into sports where height is not a prerequisite to success. But yeah, I want them to try, and I want them to be exposed to it because they'll love it and they'll be great times, and they'll take a lot away from it, I think.
Yeah. And so with your girls, I'm so fascinated by your role as CEO, and your kiddos are young still, like, navigating that all. How are you managing that?
Yeah, you guys picked a good day to have this conversation. I was commiserating before we started about how I had no sleep last night, and my 9-month-old, who is my best baby, goes to bed at 8, wakes up at 8, was up from 1:30 until 5:30, and ended up sleeping on my chest. So it was a tumultuous night. But I think the short answer is, there's no right time to have kids. So as much as I would have liked to plan this earlier or later or whatever it may be, like, life happens when it happens. And I knew I wanted a lot of kids, so there's no compromise on that. And I knew I wanted this company to be successful, so there's no compromise on that. And then everything else, kind of falls into place. I think, like, my life is very logistically complicated with travel schedules. I travel most weeks Tuesday to Thursday. I'm in the US a lot. I have 4 kids at home, so, they need their mom and I want to be there. So as much as I would say, I love my job and I love my company, my number one job is being a mom to them. So I really hold tight to the time that I have with them, and when I am there, I want to be present. I think, one thing I say to a lot of moms, and piece of advice I guess I'd have to others, is I think you need to know your internal balance between work and home. And when that starts to become skewed, you start to get a little bit like antsy about, I'm spending too much time at work, or we just went to Mexico with our 4 kids for 5 days. It's like, I'm spending too much time with my kids. It was crazy. So I think knowing what that balance is for you. And for me, I always work really early in the morning. So by the time they're up, I'm like, I've already worked a full work day. Like, they could go completely sideways. They'll probably be fine. And then I'm with the girls in the morning, getting them off to school. They see me before they go to school. They're happy about that. Then I go into work or I'm on the road. And then most nights of the week, I'm home for them. So when they're home at 5:30, I actually don't work in the evenings. I think people find that surprising, but I'd rather work early in the morning. And yeah, it's being present with them. It's not being on my phone all the time, which is something I really fight for. At 5:30, I'm like, take this phone, put it somewhere I can't find it. And I think people are better about understanding that now. In, post-COVID life, they understand you may jump on after they go to bed just quickly to get back to an email, and you want to be responsive. But people are also understanding that you have family commitments, and, we need to be able to balance them both.
Yeah. How does that philosophy permeate into your role as a leader within Odyssey?
Yeah, I think for us, what's nice about our company is we have so many women. So that's always been something that I think sets us apart. We're a trust and transfer agent. So We are the infrastructure behind public capital markets. It is like quite administrative at time, but it's also like a bit legal, a bit technical. There's so much. People think we are a boring industry, but I think there's so much exciting things that happen behind the scenes. And then because we are in this financial services administrative side, naturally a lot of women end up working with us. So it's been really cool because we get to see women both start their careers. And the best thing about Odyssey, hands down, is when I hear conversations between some of the younger generation who will start, and it's just like, I love that like a woman runs our company, or there's so many great mentors here. And that's something that, not all women have when they first start their careers, especially in capital markets. So that's really great. And then, for this age group of women who are having children, we have quite a bit of flexibility. So we're a hybrid work schedule. And that's one thing I think is really interesting as we think about how women can be great both at work and at home at the same time. Sometimes that flexibility is needed. And what it ends up getting you as an employer is a much more committed team member, because they value that you have that understanding. And I think we're a place where, moms like to work because they see me and they're like, oh, well, you're going to the same, events that we are. You have the same balance that you're trying to do. And then we also have lots of dads and guys that work at our company who, have this really great, I'll call it like new age mindset of, I don't mind working in a company where a woman is the leader and bringing their great ideas and their own family planning perspectives. And so we have a really cohesive team. But I think, overall, we're just really lucky to have this great place where women can succeed. And it's kind of, that road's already paved for you here. So yeah, it's really nice.
I'm curious if that is a chicken or an egg question. So did you have that kind of flexible philosophy prior to family planning, or did it kind of flip once you started thinking about family?
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it with our business was shifted from COVID. So COVID brought everybody, into their homes. And then what we have had is a really, I think, great overall company experience of people proving that they could stay hybrid. And the way that we operate, it's not the same for every group in our office, because some people need to be in the office every day to do the day-to-day stuff. And, we're grateful for those folks. And then there's some roles that can be more flexible. And so we've just had people, continually every year showing up more and more. That allows us, when the question gets asked, hey, should we go back into the office, more? We're like, well, we've been doing so great. Why would we force everybody to do that? And so we really put the onus back on our teams to say, hey, as long as you guys can keep excelling, we can keep this in place. And then, yeah, I think it gives us a leg up, and it's something that we have really held true to. We've had lots of discussions like everybody else. We are a financial services company. We're federally regulated in Canada. We're Minnesota. We're a trust company in the US as well. So, lots of banks are pushing people back, and we're like, no, we're going to stick to this. And it's really important to our teams, and we continue to get the job done beyond what people would expect. So,
well, and you cultivate that loyalty, right? Mm-hmm. And talent is fleeting. And I think that's one thing throughout the course of this podcast, as we've interviewed other leaders, it's if you don't demonstrate the value and commitment that you feel for your top performers on your team, they will go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so part of it is also, a retention strategy.
We look at people and we're so proud of our engagement scores. It's sickening. Like, they're very, very high. But every year the engagement survey comes out and we're like, are people 95% engaged still? And so it means a lot to us to take care of our people and our team. And we're lucky because on one hand, we're building a fast growing company. And so some people, that just so energizes them. And they're like, oh, I get to get my hands dirty. I get to make an impact here. I get to build. And that really resonates with people. On the, loyalty and retention side, we say to people, like, we are successful and what allows us to be that way. And so we want that to come full circle, and we want to take care of you in a way that's meaningful. So yeah, we've been lucky, I think, to be one of the companies that we've found a good, I think, balance for our teams.
So take us back to the founding of Access Connects. I feel like that's a very take us back to, all those 6 years ago.
Way back.
What piqued your interest or curiosity around the city is missing an integral part of its well-being, its moment of its pride, of when you and the other founders of Access were sitting around saying, you know what we need to do? We need to build an organization. How did that come about?
Yeah, I feel like every time someone leads us off, they talk about rosé. So I'll keep that out of my answer, but there's definitely rosé involved, which I think gave us a little bit of liquid courage when we were brainstorming.
Yeah. Made some commitments.
Yeah, made some statements that we then had to fall back on the next day. But I think at the time, so it was 6 years ago, it was probably 7 years ago as things were really forming. But what was interesting is we were all leading organizations that were trying to help women in different ways. And so we came together, one of the biggest things that we talked about was how many organizations there were and how difficult it was to find time for women in capital markets and, all of the different events that we had, corporate diversity consultants, women get on board. And so we talked about having this, that was the first time we spoke about the hub, like having a hub that could coordinate all of this and really be one voice for championing women in decision making and building that pipeline of talent up all the way to the board level. And we just had some really great, I think, ideas of what that could look like and who would be involved. And then, like everything, timing was everything. So I think we just hit a really good time in people's attention on this topic and wanting to support an organization that could really champion this in a meaningful way. And then I think, again, we got lucky with connections and we got lucky with people. And it was also a unique time in Alberta where we were a bit lagging on some of the ways other provinces and like even Canada as a country, how other countries were coming up. And so I think we hit a sweet spot in all of these things coming together at the perfect time. So when we originally were brainstorming things that we wanted Access to do, it was championing great women and setting the bar for success, which we've done through the CIWB Awards, which has been excellent. And then having this career roadmap for people so you could join Access at any time and have a roadmap for where your career would take you. And a lot of these came from ideas that we would have wanted for ourselves. So it's been so great as, a first-year associate to have an organization like this where I could just, plop myself into it and have it take me through where I needed to go. And we identified in some of those original brainstorming sessions, things that women don't inherently get exposure to or understand the importance of, like running a P&L before you can sit on an exec or be a CEO. That's really important. So how do we get more women understanding and wanting and asking for, how do I run a P&L? I'm sure this has been vocalized by other people on the podcast, but we just had so much support day one. I mean, we went and asked for it, and yes, we didn't want to take no for an answer, but I don't even know if we had any no's to take for answers. People just said, we love this idea. The organizations that Access supports were there and wanting to be a part of a more organized platform to support women. So many corporate sponsors stepped up and were like, yeah, of course we would back this. I can't wait to see it in action. And then I think the remaining piece has been you guys, which is like the execution, the most important day-to-day piece of this business, which is making sure that we're delivering to people everything that we say we will. And then just the feedback on that, just say, I know some of my team has gone to the lunch with the leaders and they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, like I learned so many things today. I can't wait to take it away. And so, yeah, it's been great.
It's certainly, it's like a pulse now, like throughout the community, whether it's the Leadership Forum or the Calgary Influential Women in Business Awards, which is like the go-to event of the spring. or whether it's the various workshops throughout the year. It's been really exciting to see the growth of Access. And now with this focus on research and advocacy, I feel like is like its next evolution of growth. So when we look at that, the percentage of women in the C-suite and in the CEO chair, and what are the trends in Canada that frankly are not that inspiring, but the percentage of women in that talent leadership pipeline also has been going down. Like, what's the role of Access Connects and ensuring that there's awareness of that there are, mitigation factors? How are we having these conversations across, corporate Canada?
I'm curious on the career roadmap thread, what kind of career planner are you? Like, did you expect your career to go this way? Did you plan for it? Or are you more spontaneous and following opportunities?
Yeah, I'm certainly not a spontaneous person. Although, like, I would hate to say it. I think people would say that about me. I also did mention I'm the most boring person you've ever met. You may have gathered that by the fact I told you I work really early and go to bed really early, but I'm the most boring person on earth. That's the only way that my life works right now. I promise I'll be fun later on. Like, the rosé was the sweet spot of my life that now is gone. But I think on the career progression side of things, I mean, I went to law school. I was a lawyer. And so obviously I was like quite meticulous about going through that plan. I do think that being an entrepreneur is not a path that most people see for themselves. I think if you asked a group of 10-year-olds, unless you ask my 8-year-old who definitely thinks she's going to be the boss of something, most people don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. But I think that the skills you have that get you ready to make that decision are things like I mentioned. I have strong work ethic. I'm a resilient person. I was willing to take a risk when other people weren't. And so I think those things all do make you a great entrepreneur. And that career path is one that, again, I don't think you necessarily plan for, but when it happens, you then move into planning mode again pretty quickly. So yeah, when I look around at how we've been successful, it does take a lot of planning. There's no days that you're looking at my calendar and there's not at least probably 20 meetings in there. So there's a lot of strategy and a lot of execution. But there's also a lot of time for like big picture thinking, which is important, and looking beyond the day-to-day to say, what levers do we need to pull, and how do we continue to make this a growth story? So it's exciting. So it is a good mix of planning and a bit of like, I always say, like an eagle, you have to like dive down into the forest and fly there for a bit, but then come back up and see the bigger picture. So it's a really good balance for me.
And so when you think about that next iteration in your career or in your family and your journey, what does that look like?
Yeah, great question. Like, it's hard for me to think that far out, where we are right now. I mean, the company's growing like a weed. We were the 8th fastest growing company in Canada. We've been on that list for 5 years, I think now. So it's been full steam ahead the whole time. We're in the US now. There's lots of exciting momentum happening there for us. But I think I have a good balance too between work and then projects that really energize me. So Access is one of them. It's amazing to see how fast it's grown and all the impact that it's having. I sit on some corporate boards. I co-founded a crypto custodian, which is awesome. And so I have other things that pique my interest as well. If I can drop my tidbits of things that I would be doing if I, for some reason, magically had a bunch of time on my hands, I would be absolutely advocating for Alberta to get better full-time kindergarten in place. So that is something I feel so passionate about. I think we're the only province that doesn't have full-time kindergarten. It is such a suck to women who want to go back to work after having kids. And I know it's a resource and a capacity problem, but we have lots of money here. We should be spending it on giving kindergarten kids full days. 8:30 to 11:30 is no time. Like, explaining this to somebody outside of Alberta makes their brains explode. And a lot of that onus falls on mothers. So I think it's even disproportionately hurtful to us. And then another would be fertility. So I went through IVF with all 4 of my children. It's mental and physical warfare. But in Canada, we are at least 10 years behind the US on IVF technology. And I think it's really interesting. And I'd love to like do a little survey of this at the forum of women to see who will be using fertility support as part of their family planning journey, and what percentage of that has increased or decreased over time. But it feels to me like in my world, a lot of women are going down different fertility paths, and we just don't have the support for them. And so I think there's money that needs to go to that. It's a big picture story. There's policy. It's lots of things. And so, yeah, somebody could be dragging that forward.
Right. Yeah. Well, both, are critically important to women's professional and personal advancement.
Yeah. It's something that you were just talking about, the doctors who are
leadership
the team that
forum.
will be speaking leadership forum. It's one of those things where I think, we have to always look back. Like, was 100 years ago, women didn't have the vote. So, I mean, like we've come a long way. There's a lot of great infrastructure in place, but there's still some pieces that are painfully not there. One of them is med health. So like anything fem med is behind where it could and should be. And so there's so much exciting potential there. But people have to put the work and put the capital behind it to get everything that we can. And fertility is, a subset of that. But it's one of those things where it's now becoming such an important issue to women, and we just don't have the science to support it properly. It's expensive, and we need to sort out that. And then just the actual access to it is not there. So, yeah.
I think the promising thing about the fertility conversation is that I think our generation of women did not talk about our health at all. And so it wasn't an issue. I mean, I struggled with having my first. So that wasn't an issue for me until I was already trying. But I think now the younger kids, they're at least talking about it.
Yeah.
And so at least it is a topic of conversation and something that is on their minds, that maybe I should freeze my eggs. Maybe I should think about these proactive measures versus being reactive.
Yeah, I do think it's something that particularly mothers will have to take into their own hands, because I was involved with a company that was doing early egg freezing, and it's hard to get a movement going. Like I always say, if Taylor Swift froze her eggs, every 20-year-old would want to do it. But it's hard to get you thinking about it, 10 years before you may actually want to have kids. So, I think it is something that mothers should be talking to their daughters about early. Even if it's late 20s, you're saying like, hey, if you want to have kids in 10 years, there's a way you can get this started and protect yourself against that now. It's very stressful going through egg freezing in your late 30s where, you just don't have as many eggs, and, you're in time and place in your life where it feels like you need to be acting right now, and you may not have a partner. And so the earlier you can hedge that off, the better. But I do agree. I think having people talk about going through it and being really open and not afraid to say, I had a miscarriage, or I, lost embryos, or whatever that looks like. Those are hard conversations, and they're very emotional for people. They're very emotional for me. But we have to start having them and be comfortable having them. And it should be just as common as talking about like, who's playing football on Sunday? Oh, I'm going through IVF right now, and here's where I am in my cycle. Because it helps women out, and it makes them feel like they're not alone going through this. And lots of times it's educational. The number of women who wrote me little emails to be like, hey, this happened. Sometimes there's just an easy answer for those problems that it's very difficult to find on the dark web or on Reddit. So.
Right. Well, Jenna, we want to thank you for being here with us today on The Quiet Part Out Loud. Always great to see you and such an enlightening conversation. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you.
The Quiet Part Out Loud is produced by Access Connects and brought to you by Oh, wait, is there a sponsorship opportunity there? Learn more at accessconnects.com.